Sorry.
deer can be challenging because they eat shoots and leaves. They're browsers. If they get a hold of a young tree, they can eat so much they can kill it dead in one night. Uh, they also, when they're larger, can engage in bark and trunk damage by rubbing their especially elk, and they can really do wounds in the bark that can then become infected and weaken and kill the trees in that regard. But what most people are talking about is deer browse. So this is an example of my favorite kind of individual fencing. If you're going to look at fencing, which I think is a great strategy, you can either think about fencing individual trees if you don't have a lot of them and they're widely spread, or you can fence large areas. Deer have really bad depth perception and they're risk averse. So they won't try to cross over anything. They really can't see where the other side of it is. If they see something that's tall, but they can't really tell how tall it is, they won't jump over it. So fencing can be a really fantastic option, and I have a number of great examples of this. And also something as simple as motion detector sprinklers. They don't like surprises. They are very cautious about motion. We in where I live, out in the country in on Alaska, we rarely have problems with deer. The deer hang out about a mile away from us on the top of a hill, and every once in a while, they will come over. Like once every couple of years, we'll find a deer or two in the yard, and we just have motion sensors that we hook up to our hoses. And after a day or two of the deer getting sprayed, unsuspected, they leave. So that can be an excellent solution. But if you're looking for something a little more structural, you can see this is quite a large tree. That's a 3-year-old cherry, and it's well protected by that cage, but the durability of the cage becomes paramount. I just did an installation of 30 trees for a customer, and they really liked the cages that we installed for them 2 years ago. We did an installation of about 5 or 6 different trees that were caged, and another 20 hazelnuts and 4 cherries and 3 Asian pears and 2 plums that were all in an actual fenced area. And they liked both strategies so much that this year they decided to add 30 more trees. And I'm a huge fan of these remesh cages. They are the red cages that you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen. Remesh is got 4-inch grids, grid spacing, and it's used primarily as a concrete underlayment or incorporation to keep concrete flexible when they're pouring. And they come in rolls that are either 4, 5, or 6 feet tall. I really like 4-foot wide cages, which means that you would want an 18-foot long piece of remesh. Remesh is very rigid and exceptionally durable. You can get 150 feet roll of remesh for anywhere between 100 and $150. And they are so long lasting. I really like the brown that the remesh becomes because it just sort of blends. The deer can't climb them or bend them or push into them successfully. It's just the best I've ever seen. I have seen so many shabby cages with cheap no climb wire that just get squished when the deer really test them. Um, Personally, I like using earth anchors, which you can see in the center photograph. These are screwed into the ground, and I use 3 earth anchors per remesh cage. And then I use carabiners, rather inexpensive carabiners that you can buy in bulk off the internet, to close the cage opening and to hook the earth anchors to the cage themselves. I find that carabiners are really wonderful because they're easy to open and get the cage open. It's not like you have to take wire or zip ties and cut them and spend a bunch of time and hurt your fingers trying to actually get in to prune, to feed, to weed, to mulch, whatever you need to do. It just makes it very easy to care for your trees, and they last for a number of years with just a little tiny bit of WD-40 if they get kind of shabby or hard to open. On the right, you can see another type of cage. I'm not a huge fan of this style because I think it really emphasizes the cage rather than the tree, which is what I like about the remesh cages. I see the tree, I don't really see the cage. However, this is another example of a really great strategy if you're using 4 T-posts and some sturdy, emphasis on sturdy, no climb wire, but once again, width is wide enough that the trees can really expand their lower branches as they're young, and everything is protected in a good way. And so these are the ones that I really like and have found to be most useful over time. Something more like whole garden protection. This was one of the most innovative systems that I have ever seen. This is on Vashon Island, and in a home that has, well, Vashon has just incredible deer pressure because it's an island. And so what these people did was they really used deer's weaknesses against them. They've incorporated a chicken run on the outside of their garden. In half of the garden is this chicken run. It's 4 foot tall posts, those simple posts that you get from Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever, and then some lateral posts as well. They've used just regular plastic, soft fence wire. And at the very bottom on the left-hand picture, I hope you can see at the very bottom, there is a wire. That is an electric fence wire. So they're protecting the chickens from weasels and raccoons and stuff like that, so they can't get into the chicken run. But what they've done on the inside of the chicken run is to extend these taller posts that are, I think they're 2x2s that they just screwed into the round Lincoln log kind of posts. And it's very hard to see, but there is wire that is attached to these uprights at 1 foot intervals. And so there's 3 more wires that are up above the chicken run. So the chicken run's 4 foot, those extend another 3 feet up. So that fence actually is 7 feet tall, but it is nothing expensive or terribly fancy. I've also had really good luck, instead of using wire, with using the white mesh electric fencing mesh that has silver wires that run through it for fencing. If you have a nice, even, and you're careful about it, level set of those mesh rings that run at 1 foot intervals, the deer really see those. And they know they can't get across it. They're not, of course, sure what it's made of. They just know that it's not going to work for them, and they leave it alone. Again, you can find that from people who have fencing they're trying to get rid of. It's not expensive to buy. And you can have a really nice, durable, reliable fence for not very much money and not a lot of infrastructure, and relatively easy to build. So villain number 2 would be birds. Birds eat shoots and leaves. Oh, well, sorry, it looks like we didn't get the the right words here for the birds. But anyway, where I find birds do their damage is they can come and they can attack leaves and damage them. But where I really see birds is taking berries and taking vines, grapes, kiwis to some extent if you don't harvest them early. And those are where we see the birds giving us trouble. Solutions for birds can be nettings and enclosures for single trees like this. And you can also enclose low berry patches with netting that's stapled to a rough wooden frame that's just laid on top of, if you pound in a couple of wooden stakes, you can just lay the frame on top of the stakes, or you can hinge them so that you can lift the frame up. That's a great way to deter birds from strawberries. Well, you can use decoys if you have a large number of, say, cherries that the birds might go after. Owl decoys can be really effective, especially if you use the solar-powered varieties where the head moves and they also have sound associated with them. But when they really work best is when people have 3 or 4 different posts in different areas of their orchard, and they can move the owl every couple of days. So a combination of an owl decoy that has sounds, that head moves, and you move the decoy, and you put them out starting about a week, maybe 10 days before you're actually expecting your harvest, just as the fruit starts to color up. And then you leave them in place until after your harvest. That's really the best timing. Another thing that can be really useful is bird tape. But what's important about the bird tape is that it has to be taut. It doesn't work if you've got a bunch of tape that's only attached at one end and it's hanging free. I have not found that to be useful. I've seen people using CDs in this way that have that mylar iridescent coating on them, but they're just, again, hanging free. It does not work as well. And so here's a quick video about how that works.
We're not hearing sound yet. Laura, we can't hear the sound.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. So anyway, what that video shows is that what's important when you're using those kind of mylar protection mechanisms is that you string them tightly. I use bamboo usually. I attach the bamboo to the sides and also to the top over the center, for example, of my grape arbor. And you attach the mylar to the bamboo, and then you attach the bamboo to your trellis, making sure that the mylar is strung tight. And there is something, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it may be the shimmering effect that it has. It may also be the sound. It makes a weird kind of humming sound when the wind blows through it. And it's just so effective. I had a friend who had about a 1/4 acre of blueberries out in the middle of the forest, really. It was a very, very secluded area. And she had a tremendous amount of deer pressure. And she had she actually attached, since she didn't have a trellis, she stuck her bamboo in the ground, and then she tied the mylar to each bamboo pole, and she made sure that the tape was at about, I don't know, the berries were about 5 feet tall. And she put the tape at about a 4-foot tall height. And then she had one that ran across the top of the center of the rows. And her bird problem was gone. It was stunning, the difference in just a couple of straps of mylar tape. So that can be exceptionally effective. And then, of course, you've got enclosures. Same property that was on Vashon Island. And, half of their orchard, they had their orchard, their berry patch, and their annual garden all together in one enclosed area. And the orchard and the annual vegetable garden had the chicken run around it. And then there was a whole nother section that had their berries, and they had netted enclosures. Again, you can see along the bottom the electric wire, although I don't think that anybody, I don't think they ever had raccoons digging under or anything like that. And you can also see another deer strategy on the right-hand picture, where they're growing a fuzzy kiwi, and they've got the interior, the kiwi vines up the interior of the berry enclosure, and then it's on a tall enough trellis that it's up above deer browse height. And that's a great strategy as well. So villain number 3 would be raccoon. So we have a raccoon that came and decimated our persimmon tree last year. I came out, and one day after all the persimmons had been gone, I harvested some, I left some on the tree, and then it seemed like I looked out a couple of days later on, they were all gone. And I thought, well, okay, I wonder if they just dropped. And I went outside, nope, no fruit on the ground. Every single piece was gone. And then I also noticed that there were a bunch of branches on the ground. And I thought, well, that's weird. What's that about? And then I put two and two together, and I realized what had happened was the raccoon had climbed the tree, had dropped the branches in its search for the persimmons. And so now I need to really be thinking about how I'm going to protect that tree from the damage that raccoon did. Not only did it take the fruit, but it, because of the tearing effect of how it took the branches off, because they tore under its weight, there were very large scars on the bark of the central leader of the tree. And luckily, it doesn't look like that tree has been infected with anything, but it happened during November when it's cold and it's rainy, and fungal infections would have been at their peak. So raccoons can just absolutely ruin brand new trees, split them in half with their weight, and take all of the fruit, especially when the fruit isn't even ripe. Oh my gosh, that just makes me so mad. And not only can they actually break branches off, but they can destroy the fruiting spurs as they're rummaging around on the tree. And again, really an unpleasant thing to discover. So solutions for raccoons are different. You can try live trapping them and relocation. They are considered pests, and so you can drown them. And depending on your stomach for that sort of thing, that could be an option. There are anti-climb sleeves or cages, like what we're seeing here. And you can see that there's some very sharp and pokey things down here in the middle section of this tree guard. But the thing about raccoons is they are very canny and dexterous on solid surfaces, but they do not like surfaces that move. And one of the best anti-raccoons, I think, is so unknown that I couldn't even find a picture of it on the internet. And it has to do with using chicken wire. If you can attach chicken wire to the trunk of your tree in such a way that the bottom of the chicken wire is attached to the tree, but the top hangs over and kind of, it looks weird and floppy, but it keeps the raccoons off the tree, because the raccoons start to climb the tree and then they can't climb the unattached portion of the chicken wire, and they end up going upside down, and it makes them very scared, and they drop off and they can't do any damage. I've also seen this really done successfully for people with livestock. One of the best duck, goose, and chicken protectors I ever saw was a what do you call them? Dog kennel fence, a chain link, 4-piece chain link fence that had the chicken wire attached to the top of it. And once again, just the bottom was attached and the top flopped over so that the raccoons could climb to the top of the chain link because it was rigid, but they couldn't get around the chicken wire. And it was a very simple, very inexpensive strategy. And you could even come up with something like that. And I'm thinking of doing something like that as like a 4-sided screen where I could take some no climb wire or some of that remesh and create a little screen or cage and then put the chicken wire up at the top. And that would be a great way to keep the raccoon off of my persimmon. And villain number 4 would be rabbits. Oh, they're so cute. They're so adorable. I love them. They are, they make me happy when I see them, except when I know they're going to eat my food. And I do have cats that capture and kill young rabbits, and even, teenage rabbits. So cats can be effective. But the best way to really think about rabbit control has to do with something a little more durable than that. Rabbits will strip the bark and the cambium from your young trees. Thankfully, they only target young trees. You have to worry about this for about the first 3 years that your trees are in the ground. But during the winter months, they will girdle young trees by chewing through and eating the thin bark and the cambium underneath it because it's very nutritious. And this is any kind of tree, especially nut trees, because their cambium tends to be very sweet. And the best solutions for rabbits are tree guards. Either a tree guard like this, 1/2-inch hardware cloth that you attach in the fall, like September is not too early to set out your tree guards. I'm taking my tree guards off now that it's starting to get warm. The trees they will overheat if you leave a plastic tree guard in place for too long. And this is another video, which we can't play, obviously, but you can see in my hand, in the lower left-hand portion of the screen, that is a plastic tree guard. And it is rigid spiral, and it has some airflow, and it's very easy to wrap it around the tree itself. And then you can take it off, and this well, okay, so that's what they look like. And I really like tree guards like this because they're, once again, reusable. I'm not a big fan of plastic in the garden, but that's one plastic use I can get behind. And then as I plant more trees, I can take the tree guards that I don't need on the older trees and I can put them on the younger trees. And then I can give them away to friends when I don't need them anymore. So I find that to be a really useful strategy as well. So you want to grow smart, protect your trees and your food plantings from these common villains so you can enjoy your harvesting for years and years to come. And that's that. Y'all still with me?
Yeah, they're still here. Yeah.
All right. So for those of you who know or have listened to me talk in the past, I really love the conversation after this kind of presentation. So I would like to go ahead and hear what everybody, and we can all share our strategies.
Yeah. Anyone have questions?
I have a question. How high do you go with the tree guard for the rabbits, please?
The tree guards themselves are, oh gosh, they're probably 2.5 feet tall. And since we don't get heavy snow here, that's usually enough. For people that have heavy snow, the rabbits can sometimes get on top of the snow and then they get, they girdle the tree higher up, but we don't usually have to worry about that. And luckily, if a rabbit got up high and managed to girdle the tree, as long as you've got about 3 inches of scion above the graft union on a tree that is still solid, then you have the opportunity to regrow the tree. It's not optimal, but it, won't kill it dead the way that girdling the tree, right at the graft union, or if the graft is tall, if they girdle the rootstock, I mean, you're just dead in the water. And that's another reason to have real easy access into your deer-proof cages if you have deer and rabbits that you have to worry about. So you can get in and you can add your trunk protectors in the fall easily and effectively, and then take them off easily and effectively at the end of the springtime as well. And they can also act somewhat as vole guards. We talked a little bit about voles. Let's talk about voles. There is a nice video on the Rain Tree YouTube channel about how to dig a hole, how to prepare a hole. And one of the things that I do is I make vole guards out of 1/2 inch hardware cloth. And I do 2 pieces that are about 9 inches wide and about 3 feet long of 1/2 inch hardware cloth. And I take that and I put that on the inside of the hole, right at, and sometimes just above the surface of the edge of the hole. And then I backfill it, put the tree in, backfill it. So how voles access trees is usually through mole holes. The moles will be drawn to the young trees because they are carnivores. Moles are. And when you're watering the trees, especially in the spring and the summer, then the worms are drawn to the water, the moles are drawn to the earthworms, and the voles use the mole tunnels to get into the root zones of the young trees. And they eat them, and it just is so painful to see a tree that was standing nice and straight and tall, and then one day you look at it and it looks like this. And I say, why is that tree looking like that? And I go out and I look at it and move it around, and it just goes boop right out of the ground. And the end looks like a pencil, a sharpened pencil. It's so depressing. So trying to make sure that you don't have your mulch right at the base of the tree can be very important, because the voles will get into the mulch and they'll right into the center of the tree and they'll nibble on the base of the tree. And of course, it's not good to have your mulch right up against the tree anyway, because it keeps it moist and can cause fungal problems. But, the donut mulch technique, where you have your tree and then very little mulch, but bigger mulch over here, and then most of the mulches in the area around the root zone and the extending root zone of the tree, can help keep the voles from getting in. And when they're in the open like that, they don't like it because they can be seen by raptors. And my cats catch voles all the time. And that's another real great strategy if you've got cats that do that sort of thing. So
yeah, it's very interesting talking about the moisture attracting the worms, which attract the moles, which makes tunnels for the voles. Because when I was going through and tearing out all the fruit trees that they killed, and I was digging and collapsing all the tunnels, I'm like, this tunnel runs exactly underneath my 1/2 inch emitter tubing line that runs along my spoliate trees. So I think it's creating this nice, wet, earthworm-filled area for the moles, and so it just led them from one tree to the next one. So, and
you have all my
mulch,
sympathy.
thank you. I did this. I used not hardware cloth, landscape fabric, because we have all the weeds, horsetail and bindweed and thistle and burdock, everything. So I used landscape fabric, but I put it right up against really close to the tree trunk. So I think it's perfect for them to just go hide under this nice warm cover and
Yes.
munch on the tree trunk.
Oh,
So all the landscape fabric's gone, yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Yes, and if you use burlap as part of your mulch strategy, again, you got to watch that the burlap is not too close for just that reason. Yeah.
I've just got a little bit of hog fuel that wood chips, a fairly thin layer kind of around it, but not right up against it. Is all I have.
Yeah, yeah.
How far does that ring should be before the bare spot before you get to the 6 inches, 10 inches?
Oh, it doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be very wide at all. Like maybe a 4 or 5 inch wide ring that would just have like one thin layer of wood chips so that you're still shading the soil. You're just not creating this big, thick pad of water holding and shading capacity, except where the roots actually are, at the drip line and just beyond is where you want the bulk, the depth of that, for protection in the summertime, for moisture holding, and then also in the wintertime to protect the root zones from any freak frosts. Yeah, doesn't need to be too big.
Yes, did you have a question?
Well, I guess it's a question. I'd kind of like to know what she thinks of the deer fencing, the plastic deer fencing you can buy by the roll. I know people that have used it and it's there for a while and then it's not, and then it sags and yeah.
Yeah.
So,
See, and unless you have a really durable structure that you're attaching it to, like those folks on Vashon who had a really nice structure that they attached a soft plastic fencing to, that in that circumstance, I think it worked really well. But if it's just, I find so many saggy cages, soft cages, um, where the deer just push in, that maybe they only have 2 T-posts or maybe 3 T-posts, and the deer can just push right in. I've seen people pile fencing around the edge of a fenced section in the middle, which the deer don't want to walk on the fencing for sure. But then when the grass starts growing, you can't really tell where the fencing is anymore. You can't mow effectively. That just gets weird and difficult to manage. So I'm not a real fan of creating width in that way. But there are ways to create width if you have the ability to create a brush pile, or you can do two a wide two what am I saying? Two-sided fence that you fill with brush and whatnot, and as an exclusion area on the outside of a larger system that has some width to it. And again, they just don't know how wide it is. So that can be really useful. And then if you do what they did on Vashon and you take the interior portion of a wider or an angled support structure and extend it with something that is very visible, but done well, so it doesn't look all saggy and floppy and, amateurish, because, folks like their gardens to look clean and tidy and that sort of thing. And I understand that. Then, then you've got this something that will work very well that doesn't have a lot of infrastructure to it and can not be too expensive.
I can speak a little bit to the larger deer fencing, like around the perimeter of our property.
Mhm.
We put it in, it was just it was plastic, And critters have, like raccoons and things, have made little holes every once in a while, but
Yeah.
it's keeping the deer out. However, Randy, what Randy put in, Randy, Merkel here put in was, what, coated wire?
Yes, PVC coated chicken wire.
Yeah, so that's gonna last a long time and less likely to be chewed through by little critters.
And it's really thin, so it's hard to, well, it's hard to see, which means I think it looks nice, but you have to tie little ribbons on it so the deer
Yeah.
can see it.
Right.
But yeah, I've really liked it so far, and it's, a lot cheaper than, welded wire or the bigger, heavier duty fences, and it doesn't look so industrial,
Yes, right. Oh, and now that we can all see each other, I want to explain a little bit more about the way the chicken wire is attached to deter raccoons. If you've got a ring like this, and the interior of the tree is right here, and you can take the chicken wire and attach it so the bottom is attached like this, and then the chicken wire comes up and flops over this way. So not this way to the interior of the ring, but actually to the exterior of the ring. Then when the raccoons are climbing up, they start climbing upside down, and they can't get up and in. And that's the way to attach the chicken wire, so it actually folds over the outside of the ring itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Kind of like, fencing that you've used to deter cats also. If you're trying to keep cats out of your yard, the fencing is away from your yard, that which deters them, so.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
that makes.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
I did see some pretty amazing tree cages once in Port Gamble that were four-sided structures, and then they had flanges that looked almost like an old-fashioned clothesline made out of chicken wire that went that way and out. And so it kind of looked like the shape of the tree, but it once again, it kept rats, I'm sure, and raccoons from being able to climb up and in. They would end up upside down and couldn't manage it successfully.
Yeah, that's what we want. Yeah.
We have a neighbor who used to work for DNR as one of their consultants. And he helped my little old lady neighbor build a fence around her garden. And I said, Doug, those posts aren't straight. And he said, well, that was on purpose. He simply angled the posts at each corner so that the fence angles out. And he put in, it's not terribly tall, it might be a 6-foot fence with a little space at the bottom because small critters were not an issue. It was the deer. And he claims that the angle of the fence upsets the deer. They don't understand it and aren't willing to try to jump it. And so far, she's had no deer in her little garden.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was installing this hazelnut, small hazelnut orchard in a very high-end property, and they had big, wide fence. They were like 1x6s, 1x8s that were painted white and went up to about 6 feet tall, and it all looked very elegant and everything like that. They have so much deer. It's just unreal. And that was another circumstance where I was able to add another 3 feet to the top of that fence just by, again, using that white mesh electric fencing. And we got out the level and we stapled them into 1x1s that were attached to the tops of the fence posts. And so we extended that very good looking, very elegant ranch style fencing in a way that looked good and it looked like it belonged, that it was part of the original design. And it has been extremely effective in keeping out the deer. In fact, they had those metal gates, those big pivoting metal gates that were at their access to get into that garden. They noticed that the deer were starting to jump over the gates to get in. And so we extended those strings across the gated area as well. No more deer. No more deer.
Questions? Well, what about squirrels? We gave up one of the reasons why we gave up our, fuzzy kiwis was because the squirrels were getting them before they got ripe enough for us to pick, so.
Squirrels can be challenging because they will jump from taller trees onto lower areas. So paying attention to where you are siting elements in your garden that are likely to be attractive to squirrels, to try to not put them next to taller trees. When folks are installing nut trees, one of the first things I say is this anywhere near some taller trees? Because if it is, they might as well not even install them, because the squirrels will just jump and get them. Squirrels can climb if they can't jump, and those same kinds of sleeves can be useful to deter squirrels. Sometimes you see people using them on bird feeders to keep squirrels from climbing the bird feeders as well. You make a good point, Deb, about what you're planting and when you can harvest it. I mean, one of the great things about kiwis in general, whether they're fuzzy kiwis or hardy kiwis, is that you can harvest them before they are fully ripe and before birds and raccoons and vermin and usually squirrels would be attracted to them. You just go through and start when you believe they're going to be just beginning to soften, the very beginning of softening, and you go out and you feel them every couple of days. And then when you feel one ripe fruit, you can harvest everything from the vine and bring it inside and ripen it. And for people like in the cities, I very strongly recommend that they plant kiwis instead of grapes for just that reason, because there's just so much predation in cities.
As to that.
Cayenne pepper. Other
And
critters.
trapping. Also squirrels, you can trap squirrels, and they are, again, nuisance animals. So you can drown them in a garbage can full of water. And that happens pretty quickly. It's not too terrible for everybody involved. But yeah, that's back in the day. That's why people had recipes for squirrel stew. That's why people ate venison. I'm a huge fan of recognizing that yields in a system come in a lot of different versions. And if there's an animal on your property that is bothersome and you can make use of it, then that could very well be a yield.
Your recipes for cat stew? We have cats. We have cats, so indoor cats, but.
Yeah.
But I did want to mention, that
Joe Mama's pizzas.
in Washington State, if you trap a raccoon, it's against the law to relocate it. You have to kill it. Yeah, so unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, a 72-gallon tote would be an effective and quick way to dispatch an animal humanely like that.
Just a what?
Yeah.
Did you say shoot it?
No, drown it in a 72-gallon tote full of water. A square tote would fit a large live trap.
Yeah.
No, it's not ideal.
That's why I was 9-foot deer fence and it worked.
Yeah. But I do know that it does work on squirrels. unintentionally, we were trying to catch rats, and we had a big garbage can with the little walk the plank thing where they
Oh,
walk
that's
out on it, and then
The wheel of misfortune.
But apparently squirrels like climbing up high on things more than rats do, and so we just caught squirrels, and so that we so we took the trap down, but it was after like the third squirrel, we're like, this is not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
A rat trap with bacon wrapped string so they can't pull the thing off without getting tugging it. No,
Oh,
that's cooking job.
all kinds of strategies, but yeah, any other questions for Laura or
Yes.
things to share here?
I've got one more on the tree guards. So I got some of the plastic spiral tree guards with the holes in them. And I was talking to one of our other members, Dana Hoagland, about it, and he said the one issue he's had with them in the past is they can trap moisture even with the holes next to the trunk, and then he's had to start growing roots. Like
Interesting.
the tree guards.
Huh.
And so he kind of cautioned me against that specific one just because of how wet it is. But I mean, I don't know. You're not that far. I'm in Alaska too, so not that far. So if
I've
they
never
work for you,
seen that
maybe
happen.
cautious. Okay.
No, I've damaged tree trunks by leaving the tree guards on too long in the summer. Some of those early heat spells can overheat the trunks and split the bark in ways that I really wish I hadn't done. They live, the trees live, but it takes them a while to recover from that sort of damage. And if I was trying to prevent something from getting too hot, I would use horticultural paint instead of, a tree guard. But I know that only because I've done it wrong in the past. But yeah, that's surprising. And they usually are, while they are rigid, they're usually larger in diameter than most young trees. And so usually, since you're only using them for 2 or 3 years, there's enough room for there to be at least decent airflow. But yeah, and roots forming higher up on the bark, that's just opportunistic. And cutting them off and letting them air dry, will usually solve the problem. It's not gonna introduce disease or there are funny, weird galls that trees make sometimes that are made out of root tissue. And they're just weird. And you keep them cut and it doesn't hurt the tree.
Interesting. Learn something every day.
Well, that's why I love gardening, because I never know it all. I always get to learn something new.
Absolutely. Well, any other questions? Thank you, Laura. Good information, and prompted some good questions and good discussion. Woo! So thank you so much.
Yeah, there are a bunch of like 65 different instructional videos on the Rain Tree Nursery YouTube channel. There are a number of different playlists, and if you go on their YouTube channel and you look at the different playlists, for the folks that want to see garden tours, we have probably a dozen really wonderful, quite different garden tours on that. And there's the How to Do It playlist that has pruning videos and information on how to care for combo trees and how to plant a tree for success and care for trees, and all the kinds of fun informational videos that you can find on the internet. But what I really like about ours is they're really specific to the Pacific Northwest. I mean, we tried to make them as generic as possible, but because that's where we are and we were filming here, a lot of them really do have information that is very well suited to our bioregion. And so I encourage you to take a look at those videos. There's other playlists that have to do with different varieties and describing them and all that kind of stuff. We have almost 200 videos. And so I'm very proud of all of that work. And I encourage people to use it as a good resource.
Yeah, sounds like a good resource. Yeah, thank you. The
Yeah.
persimmon you had problem with, was it American or Asian?
It was Asian. It was one of the very early ripening. Well, early ripening for everybody else is really late ripening for us. But
These get ripe.
yeah, it was the first year I got a really good yield on it. But now I know.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you, Laura. Really appreciate your talk and
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have
yeah,
fun.
thank you. And you're
Protect
welcome
you and your
to
trees from those villainous animals.
Crime Stoppers. I like us.
I got my
All right.
blueberries.
Take care, all.
Well, you too, Laura. Bye-bye. I'll end the recording here. Recording. Cool. So let's not forget about we've got a couple of things coming up here.